that we're going to mention later when we talk about various awards that have been received. So I call now upon Mr. Mike Hubbard to come forward and lead us all in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hubbard, sir. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Mr. Hubbard, and we will see you in a moment or two. Ms. McManus, if you would now please call the roll of the board.
Director Broom.
Present.
Director Busick.
Here.
Director Catlin.
Here.
Director Cook. Director Folska.
Present.
Director Geisinger.
Here.
Director Lewis.
Present.
Director Lubau.
Here.
Director Menton.
Here.
Director Mahalik.
I'm here.
Director Rivera Malpietti.
Present.
Director Walker.
Here.
Director Whitmore.
Present.
Director Williams.
Good evening. I am here.
Chair Tisdale.
Present.
14 present, 1 absent.
Thank you very much, Ms. McManus. We appreciate that. We now have our standard safety briefing. At RTD, safety is our core value, and so we begin all of our meetings with a short safety briefing. If we have a medical emergency that necessitates calling 911, I will ask our RTD General Counsel to make that telephone call. Any medically trained individuals in the room are respectfully requested to assist. If needed, an automatic emergency defibrillator, that's an AED device, is in a glass case located just outside this room on the wall to the right. In the event we must evacuate the building due to an emergency, please calmly exit out the door that you came in at the back of the room there, go up the stairs to the first floor, around the security desk, and exit through the front door. Police and security officers will be there to direct you to a safe meetup area. And anyone who needs special assistance in the event of an evacuation will be assisted by RTD staff as necessary. On a related safety note, RTD takes every reasonable precaution to ensure the safety and security of its passengers, vehicles, and facilities. That said, the agency relies on both staff and the general public to be aware and alert to any suspicious or dangerous activity on buses and trains and around stations, stops, and platforms. As such, we encourage all RTD employees and all patrons to download the RTD Transit Watch app, which allows users to report suspicious or dangerous activity and to communicate directly with RTD transit security personnel on a real-time basis in the event of an emergency situation. The Transit Watch app is available via Google Play and the Apple App Store. Remember, if you see something, say something, and with the Transit app, you'll never ride alone. Thank you. We have several retirees that we are honoring this month for the month of July. I believe we have one of them who has joined us this evening, and so first we will recognize Carolyn Conover, Senior Manager of Contracted Services, who's been with the agency for over 27 years. And so now I recognize Fred Worthen, our Assistant General Manager of Bus Operations, to say a few words.
Good evening, honorable board members. Fred Worthen, AGM of Bus Operations. As you mentioned, I have Carolyn Conover, our retired Senior Manager of Contracted Services. Last year, Carolyn came up to me and said, "Hey, I want to retire," and I was like, "No, I can't let you do that." And she said, "Yeah," and I said, "Can we talk about this?" Carolyn was planning on retiring last fall, but she was gracious enough to stay with us through a couple of major procurements and also to stay to help train whoever her replacement was. Fortunately, her replacement was one of her proteges within her department, but it was very, very kind of her to stay with us. So Carolyn has had a great career with us, though, and we are definitely going to miss her very much. Now, I know Carolyn is a Toastmasters person also, so I know she's got something to say.
I think it's written in the Toastmaster bylaws that if you're a Toastmaster, you never pass up an opportunity to speak. But a few weeks ago, a friend of mine asked me, what's the best decision you ever made? And I immediately responded, going to work for RTD. I have had so many opportunities for growth and development that allowed me to turn just a job into a long and rewarding career. I used to joke that it was my addiction to the diesel fumes that kept me around all these years. But truly, I find transit fascinating, and I enjoy being a part of something bigger than myself. I'm so proud of the service that we provide to the people within our district, and it made me happy to think that I could have a small impact on that service. So as I look back, though, on my career at RTD, I think the thing that I'm most proud of is the way that contracted services has evolved. When I started in 1992, the legislative requirement to privatize service had just been in place about 2 years. So there was still a lot of negativity, animosity within RTD, and our contractors were struggling to perform. But over the years, as the percent of privatization grew from 20% to over 50%, our contracted services team really got together. They dug down. They created some really strong performance metrics to help monitor and improve our contractor performance. We set specific performance standards and then held our contractors accountable. But the other thing we did was that we nurtured those positive, cooperative relationships with our contractors that was built on trust and respect, that we took advantage of the things that they brought to the table, their knowledge and their expertise. And today, RTD is a model in the transit industry as a way to make privatization work. And I think that's all because we took the time to learn how to do it right. So I'm grateful for all of the mentors that have worked with me over the years to help me grow and learn. I say that they filled my brain with knowledge and they filled my heart with passion for everything that we do. And although it's been a great ride, my passions are now being pulled in different directions. I have 9 grandkids that I need to spoil. I have a beautiful garden in which I need to toil. I have new adventures I want to make and new memories I'm anxious to make. So I thank the board of the directors, the senior leadership team, my coworkers, and our contract partners for everything that you have done to help me turn a job into a long and rewarding career. Thank you.
Hey, Carolyn, we're hiring over at Dr. Mack.
Well, it's an honor to listen to someone who is so well-spoken and able to communicate, even in rhyme. Are there any other retirees who have joined us this evening at this time? Seeing none, we will now offer our thanks and appreciation to the following retirees. They have contributed a combined 62 years of dedicated service to our great agency, the RTD. These are Jeffrey Greiner, a bus operator for 21 years. Cheryl Holmes, a manager of creative services for 18 years. Connie Sue Payne, an administrative assistant for 23 years. Let's hear it for them. And this evening we are also honored to recognize RTD's participants in the APTA Bus Rodeo and the APTA International Rail Rodeo, which took place earlier this year. The Bus Rodeo in Louisville, Kentucky, and the Rail Rodeo in Toronto, Ontario. To introduce the Bus Rodeo participants, I will hand the proceedings once again over to our Assistant General Manager of Bus Operations, Fred Worthen. Mr. Worthen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You know, the International Bus Rodeo is something that is near and dear to my heart. I grew up through the ranks, and in fact, Mr. Johnson, would you join me? John has actually been a 5-time champion, and we were reminiscing about competition in the past, and John and I found out that we competed against each other in 1989 in Atlanta, Georgia, right after Hurricane Hugo had hit the coast. But John has won 5 times. Unfortunately, John has won his last rodeo. He has moved on to our training department, so he won't be competing anymore. But John did very well at International. He placed 15th overall. Congratulations, John. We were also very fortunate enough to have a participant from First Transit, A.B. Ekchan. A.B., would you join me, please? A.B. has won 6 times, and for those of you who have ever gone to a rodeo, you know that A.B. and his brother Jose are the reigning champions on the contracted services side. This year, APTA changed the rules, and they did not allow us to sponsor a contractor at the APTA competitions, so the Colorado State Transit Association actually allowed AB to represent the district on their behalf. AB placed 3rd overall at International. He did fantastic. Congratulations, AB. Next, we have our Maintenance International participants. I think you have all heard me refer to them on multiple occasions as our young guns from Boulder. Chris Berry, Jackson Hughes, and Noah Stwally, will you please join me? Our young team actually had a fantastic showing. Their very first international competition, they placed 19th overall. They represented the district well. We were very pleased to have all of you represent us. Nice job, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Worthen, for the recognition of those fine participants. And I do appreciate particularly the Maintenance International participants. They fought hard and well, and when I saw them in Louisville, I told them that they should be proud of what they did and for the accomplishments that they had, because they had a great future ahead of them. Although at the time they said, "Who the hell's that guy who's talking to All right. Here to recognize the rail rodeo participants is our Assistant General Manager of Rail Operations, Dave Jensen. Mr. Jensen, you have the floor, sir.
Good evening. I am Dave Jensen, AGM of Rail Operations. And I would like to ask all of the rail competitors that are here to come up at once. And their coaches. I have the distinct fortune of not having competed against any of them. But I couldn't be prouder. I would love to be able to say that I had some part, even a small part, in their success, but the truth is that it's their hard work, their dedication, their skill, their coaching, and their managers that was able to accomplish what they did. We could not be prouder of them. So the winners of last year's local rodeo went to compete in the international rodeo last month in Toronto. We placed third overall. What I'd like to do, though, is ask the general superintendents of each of the departments, the LRB Maintenance Department and Transportation Department, to introduce their competitors and talk about them. So let's start with Phil Eberl, LRB Maintenance, General Superintendent of LRB Maintenance.
Thanks, Dave. Again, I'm Phil Eberl, the General Superintendent of Light Rail Vehicle Maintenance. And this was a great rodeo this year. It was in Toronto. And I want to take a second and just thank the Board of Directors and Dave Genova for putting on such a great rodeo in 2018 in Denver. And so Toronto came and learned what we did here, and we blew the international away with what we've done here. And so they took really good notes, and they did an outstanding job. Extremely very similar to ours. We don't know whose is the best yet, but it kind of depends, kind of like the basketball teams, I guess. But anyway, thank you for that. And this year on the rodeo, I want to thank Dave Jensen for adding a maintenance team member. We had a third maintenance team member this year, and it really paid off. And so one of the our first team member I was going to mention is Mike Hubbard, and he was in the International Rodeo last year. He's been with RTD 6 years. And then we had George Sweeney, and he's a repeat rodeo winner. He's been with RTD for 19 years. He attended the International Rodeo 16 times and won first place in the International Rodeo 4 times and won first place at the local 9 times. And so Randall Lovegrove was also another team member of ours. And he's been with RTD for 11 years, attended the International Rodeo over 12 times. And he's won the local several times also. I can't remember how many times that is. And they did very well being 3 team members at the International. And so as a whole, our team won 3rd place overall combined competition. So they did a great job. And in maintenance, we got 3rd place in maintenance. And our team actually won 1st place in the door event and tied for 1st place in the electric coupler event. So Randall, George, and Mike, step on up and congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gary Schaefer. I'm the General Superintendent of Rail Transportation, and we were very proud to go out and represent RTD in Toronto, Canada. Phil's more humble than I am. We did a better job, but we were good hosts. They did a great job as well, but I still think ours was one that knocked it out of the park. So thank you to everybody's support for the year that we hosted this. So people ask sometimes, what's a rodeo? You know, we don't have horses, we don't have that stuff. But these operators compete. We had 3 international teams, which was 2 from Canada and 1 from East Japan Railroad. They competed in ours too. They come over to the States and to Canada to compete. So they compete in a written test. They compete in a uniform inspection. They do a ground inspection. They do a customer care event, and then they operate the trains, which is really difficult for some of the folks because they're not used to these trains. So they get a few days of training, and then they go out in the yard. We did extremely well. We were extremely close in a lot of events, and we placed 3rd as a combined team overall, like Phil said. So Stephanie Klein, I'd like to have you step up first. Stephanie is one of our newer employees, which is nice. Sometimes you see folks that have been here a lot of years. Stephanie's in her 4th year, and she represented us this year in the rodeo, did quite well. She's also in that process taken a promotion into as one of our light rail controllers. So she's along her path in the career. She represented well with what we did in Toronto. And it was a huge part because it's all based on points. And if their points aren't close, we don't get into that 3rd place position and up on the stage in a trophy. So thank you, Stephanie, for your and the familiar face behind me that I'm going to invite up now is Robert Dennis. Robert, go ahead and step up there, my friend. Robert's a 9-time winner of our local rodeo, and he's quite competitive when we get to these international events. So one time, as Phil mentioned, they were combined team winners with Robert doing the operators portion and then the maintenance side. They were 1st place. Robert has also won 1st place twice in the international rodeo. And that's quite an accomplishment. There's 19 teams, and these folks are all very competitive. Robert's a credit to the district, 21 years with the district, and still very proud of what he does and represents our district very well. So I congratulate both these folks and let you know, as a group that allow us to go out and participate in these events, that they represent our district very well when we go out there. We're very well respected, and Robert's a pretty well-known person out there. So thank you again, and congratulations to these folks.
I think we could afford some spotlights up there. Or more curtain. Yeah.
It really is a great honor for us to recognize our retirees and our award winners and our participants in these events, because it really does show RTD in the very best possible light. So once again, congratulations to all of you. We come now to our public participation period, which is open to anyone who wants to address the board. It is our custom to allow any of our elected officials present to speak first so that they can get back to their own meetings and attend to their constituents' business. If you have signed up to speak, I will call your name in the order in which you signed up. If you have not signed up and would like to speak, I will ask for additional speakers at the end of the list, and we'll take those additional speakers at that time. Each speaker is allowed up to 3 minutes. Let me repeat that. Up to 3 minutes. Do not feel compelled to use all of it. We respectfully request that members of the audience refrain from any indications of support or opposition to a speaker's comments, as such outbursts might reasonably have the effect of chilling the free expression of thoughts by those speakers. And please bear in mind that by appearing at the microphone, you are consenting to being video and audio recorded, as all of our meetings are, in fact, video and audio recorded, and they're made available on the RTD website. So if you do not wish to be recorded, then your comments will have to be submitted in writing. Please come to the lectern when called, state your name and address. If you have any documentation or reference materials for the board, please give those materials to the board staff prior to speaking. On the public participation log, I have just one name here, so I'll call that name, and that's Doug Gregg. So, Doug Gregg, you are recognized, sir, and you're the only one who signed up, but you still only have 3 minutes, but you are welcome at this time, Mr. Gregg.
Doug Gregg, new address, 1135 Broadway. I came to apologize to the board. I have been very unwell lately, and so I have been very neglectful in my duties of auditing each and every one of you and checking out to make sure you're on the right path of righteousness. But my health has gotten much better, so I'm going to vigorously resume my activities. So I thought I'd come and make a public announcement that at least for a while back, I'm back. I spoke to 2 senior staff members this evening, and I made up a joke to tell them, and now I feel ancient as hell because, well, I didn't mean to swear, I apologize, because neither one of them got the joke. Oh, goodness. So their homework was to look up on the computer when they get home to discover what the New York Central and the Pennsylvania railroads were. Okay, thank you for seeing me, and I'm so glad to be back. Bye-bye now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gregg. We appreciate your being back. And let me also now, for the sake of the record, please note that our Treasurer, Director Shelley Cook, is in attendance at the meeting. She did not originally respond to the roll call, and she is here. Are there any other speakers who would wish to speak during the public participation period? Seeing none, we will then close the public participation period. We'll move on to our agenda item number 6, which is the committee reports. We now consider those committee reports. The minutes were included in the board packet, and if there are any questions, the chair will recognize those questions at this time. So we'll pause to see if any director has any questions relative to the minutes. If not, then those reports will stand as submitted and become a part of the permanent record. And those committee reports are listed in the agenda items and in the board packet for your information. Agenda item number 7 is the General Manager Oversight and Performance Management Update. And for that, we go to the GMOC Committee Chair, Director Broom. Chairman Broom, if you would at this time please share with us your comments regarding the General Manager Oversight and Performance Management Committee.
Thank you, Chair. The GMOC Committee met this afternoon at 3:30 to complete our review of General Manager Genova's mid-year performance survey. And of course, I'd like to thank everybody now for completing those surveys on time, considering it was a holiday weekend, it was due. We now plan to meet with Mr. Genova to go over the results of that survey and get his input back to the board. Finally, I'd like to just announce that this survey will be made available to the public and put on the website so that you can find the numeric scoring that took place by our committee. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Broom. Are there any questions for the GMOC Committee Chairman? And And it would appear that there are none. So then let us proceed to agenda item number 8, the approval of the, oh, wait, I'm sorry. I see there is one now. It shows up. Director Menton, you are recognized.
Thank you. Just a note that within our packet right here, and it very well could be different in the outside packet, but I see General Manager Oversight Committee as all of these minutes. July 9th, July 11th. So I'm sure we have all of those minutes, but just wanted to note that unless my computer is the only one reading that way.
Thank you very much, Director Minton. I note what you say under the committee reports under Roman numeral 6. If you click at least on the board packet as it appears on the screen that is before me, and apparently the same one before you, if you click on, for example, A, minutes of July 9, 3 p.m., that is a GMOC committee report. You look at agenda 6B, and it is similarly General Manager Oversight and Performance Management Committee minutes. And as to the next item, C and D, and likewise. So it would appear that at least for these purposes, in terms of that, they're the first thing that show up. I do note, however, that behind those there are other committee reports. If you would scroll down through those, you will see the other committee reports, and I think it's possible that there's just some linkage problem with the computer, but the other reports are present, and you can verify that by scrolling down.
I do see those copies extended. I usually see, I think, them separated, so thank you for noting that so that I can take a look at a couple items.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. Anything further, Director Menton?
No, that's it.
All right. Then the next thing we will look for is Agenda 8, and that's the approval of the board meeting minutes of June 18, 2019. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes? I have a motion from Director Williams to approve the minutes. Is there a second to that motion? Second. I have a second from, who was that? That was Second Vice Chair Rivera Malpiedi. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Do we need an electronic vote, or can we do a voice vote? There's no discussion I'm hearing on approving the minutes, and so we are ready for a call for the vote on the minutes. May we do it by a voice vote? Now we have an electronic vote available, and it was Director Williams as the movant, Second Vice Chair Rivera Malpiedi as the second. They have voted. The rest have voted. And by a vote of 15 in favor and none opposed, the minutes of the June 18, 2019 meeting are approved. We turn to agenda item number 9, the Chair's report. Thank you for your indulgence. I needed to take a sip because it's a longish report. A lot has been going on, and we are so very proud of our agency and so very pleased with how each director has engaged fully. So, in case you missed it, RTD turned 50 at the beginning of this month. To celebrate, the agency held station pop-up events in each of the 15 director districts on July the 1st, with all of us getting there very early in the morning to greet passengers and to pass out memorabilia and various items that were branded RTD. And then we held a huge party this past Friday at Denver Union Station, with virtually all of our directors present and many RTD staffers in attendance. This was such a fun and engaging way to recognize the agency's first half-century. Excuse me. I hope that you were all able to attend, and in any event, check out Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you were not. Search for the hashtag RTD50 to catch all the action, because we got lots of stuff posted there. First Vice Chair Catlin, Treasurer Cook, and Director Geisinger hosted the Colorado Science and Engineering Policy Fellowship here at our Blake Street offices on Thursday, June the 20th. This group is comprised of ambitious college students, and the program covered elements of our T2, that's our Transportation Transformation Plan, along with asset and data management, project outreach, and analytics research. This was a very worthwhile event that we hope to continue to be involved with in the future. And we thank Vice Chair Catlin, Treasurer Cook, and Director Geisinger for participating in that. Director Busick and Second Vice Chair Rivera Malpiedi and I attended the APTA Rail Conference in Toronto, Canada, from June 23rd through the 26th. And I was privileged to give a presentation on creative financing methods. My presentation was thanks in large part to the able assistance of our CFO, Heather McKillop. And Treasurer Cook and Directors Buzek, Lubau, and Whitmore all participated in a study session held by Adams County on July the 9th. And the RTD Bus Rodeo was held this past Saturday, July 13th, at the RTD District Shops. This was not the international. This was our own internal, wherein we select the individuals who will then go on to participate in the international. We look forward to recognizing those winners at a future board meeting. Our Second Vice Chair, Rivera Malpiedi, and I were present for that. And several of us, including Directors Folska, Lewis, Williams, and I all attended Mayor Hancock's inauguration at the City and County building yesterday morning. And then immediately after the graduation, I was fortunate to be able to participate in the Colorado Department of Law Transportation Expo at the Ralph L. Carr Judicial Building. And you may recall last year I reported that I was able to have a meeting with officials at Transport for London. And then earlier this year with the Utah Transit Authority, well, Vice Chair Peggy Catlin had a meeting in Seattle just over about 2 weeks ago with Sound Transit. And coming up, we've got Treasurer Cook, who's scheduling a meeting for officials from VIA in San Antonio. So anytime you travel, do check out what the agencies are, because the board office will assist you in connecting with their board and their senior leadership team for purposes of learning more about them. Upcoming events. Tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m., DRCOG will conduct a public hearing for their proposed TIP. That's the Transportation Improvement Program for the 2020 to 2023 planning horizon. As you well know, transportation projects funded with federal sources are required to be selected through a competitive regional process. The TIP process selects and funds projects that are important and valuable, not only to us as a region, but also to each local government. The board office is not aware of any directors who are planning to be there. I would encourage any of you who are both available and interested to attend and participate in this important process. This morning, Director Broom, Director Williams, Director Busick, and I were present at the RTC meeting at DRCOG, so we certainly had a chance to review all of this at that time. Then, Second Vice Chair Rivera Malpiedi, Secretary Walker, and I, along with members of the board office staff, will be traveling at the end of this week to attend the APTA Transit Board Member Board Administrator Conference. And that will be held from the 20th through the 23rd in Jacksonville, Florida. And there I will be a part of a panel on grassroots advocacy for transit board members. And then I will be attending the Denver Union Station 5th anniversary celebration on Friday, July the 26th, and I believe first Vice Chair Catlin will be there, and second Vice Chair Rivera Malpieri will also be there. And Directors Folska, Geisinger, and Williams will all attend the Denver Metro Chambers 2019 State of the City event, which will be held on Tuesday, July the 30th. As I mentioned previously, the bus rodeo was held this past weekend, and the light rail rodeo is scheduled for Saturday, August 10th. If you have not attended an RTD rodeo previously, I'd highly encourage you to check one out. Our operators and maintainers do some absolutely incredible work, and this is a great way for them to show off their talents and for us to show our appreciation. And don't forget, speaking of appreciation, the RTD Employee Appreciation Event will be held on Sunday, August 11 at Elitch's. Mark your calendars if you haven't already. I do have two formal announcements for our meeting tonight. The first is the appointment of the Ad Hoc Committee for Oversight of Certain Litigations. In light of the importance and the magnitude of certain litigations in which the agency is currently involved, and the concomitant costs associated with the same, the Chair, pursuant to and consistent with the power conferred upon the Chair by Article 6, Section 2 of the bylaws of the RTD, hereby appoints an ad hoc committee of two, consisting of the board chair and the board first vice chair, to oversee any pending major civil litigations to which the agency is a party other than personal injury or employment litigations, including oversight of the costs and expenses associated with such litigations, which oversight shall be conducted in consultation and collaboration with RTD General Counsel, with such ad hoc committee to report to the board convened in executive session pursuant and subject to the Colorado Open Meetings Law at any time and from time to time. For the sake of clarity and for the avoidance of confusion, oversight is used herein in the sense of survey, watch, inspect, and examine. And it is not used in the sense of supervise. The ad hoc committee, of course, will make no decisions as to anything concerning the litigations. Moreover, as the appointment says, this committee will report back to this board and provide the board with information relative to the progress on that. While the actual appointment of the committee does not recite the periodicity within which such reports shall be made, that actually has been determined by General Counsel advising that it would be best to do so monthly, and the charter for the committee is being written by our executive manager so as to capture the elements that I have just enumerated to you now that were not included in the original email. So that's the first announcement. The second announcement is that we have additional initiatives of communication, collaboration, and cooperation. You will recall that some directors have pointed out that various government and elected officials should from time to time come to the RTD rather than the RTD always going to them. So, your chair and your board office believe that continuing and enhanced communication and collaboration can be facilitated by creating opportunities for these individuals to come before this board occasionally. Communications and Government Relations Committee Chair Lynn Geisinger has been an outspoken advocate for this enhanced outreach and has done much of the heavy lifting. So over the coming months, you will note that various opportunities for interaction will appear on the agendas of one or another of the meetings of this board. For example, in the first instance, the extremely informative and articulate state demographer Elizabeth Garner will be with us on August the 6th, while Senators Moreno and Zenzinger and Representative Hansen will be with us on December 17th. Rest assured that such interactions will not replace our active outreach to electeds and other government leaders. That will continue. These various opportunities are a helpful supplement to those other efforts at communication, collaboration, and cooperation, and they will be monitored, overseen, and supervised carefully so as to avoid unduly extending our meetings and to ensure their efficacy. So I thank you very much for your most kind attention to and cooperation in this extended report. Are there any questions on the chair's report? Director Luba, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that 3 of the board members, myself, Director Menton, and Claudia Fulska, have signed on to have a motion heard at the next appropriate available committee meeting in August about the ad hoc committee, basically setting some limits. And having just listened to your report, it looks like the charter may state those limits anyway, so we'll see and move accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comment. Director Minton, you are recognized.
Thank you. I'm speaking also to the ad hoc committee, and I see that it is 2 members, which by that alone does not require any notice, is what I'm guessing, of those meetings, public notice, and not only the public attending and being aware of it, but other fellow board directors. So am I reading that correctly, that there would be no public notice of when an ad hoc meeting would occur?
You're reading correctly that there is none required.
Would there be public notice for each of the meetings?
That would depend upon the circumstances. I don't think I can predict the future with any certainty at this point.
I would like to be given notice of all meetings and suggest that there would be enough notice so that if I were to attend, it would for sure generate a public open meeting requirement. So I'll state that again. I would like to be notified of every single meeting of the ad hoc committee, please.
Your request is noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Director Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious of what the communication strategy will be for the board to disseminate the things that you all are learning, to get that information back out to the board so we also are familiar with that information.
Yes, thank you. As I indicated, there will be monthly reports to the board, and they will be done in executive session, pursuant and subject to Colorado open meeting law.
Monthly reports, it sounds great. And one of the concerns I have is sometimes we don't have the information that we need right away to be able to make decisions when things come to us as directors. And so I wonder if there's opportunity in that monthly report that if other things come up, that you all have something in place to get that information out, to pertinent information out to directors, so that we all are operating and able to make informed decisions.
I think that's right. I'm going to ask our general counsel to step in on this because I think that perhaps there's a confusion. This committee is not making any decisions about litigations. This committee is merely overseeing and providing information to the board. General counsel.
Just quickly, I understand that that you all aren't making any decisions. What I'm advocating for is that the rest of the things that you all are learning within that committee, that you are disseminating that information in a timely manner so that the rest of the board can operate within their respective roles with current and up-to-date information.
All right, thank you.
Chair, this is Rolf Ostpaug, General Counsel. I just want to clarify that this is a long and protracted, or at least one of the matters that this concerns is a long and protracted litigation that'll be going on until May sometime next year. There may be many months, and frankly, in which frankly there is little, if anything, to report. I think that having the board go into executive session, which requires a 2/3 vote, clearing the room, everything that needs to be done for executive session, simply for me to state there's been no significant change or something like that would be not a good use of the board's time. There might be times when, and I think we'll talk about creating the charter here, but sending some sort of written communication from me as your counsel, letting you know in an attorney-client privileged manner what's happening could be an acceptable substitute. I just want to emphasize, though, that as the general counsel, I do not settle cases. I do not take action beyond what the board as a whole, no 2 members or 5 members or whatever, directs me to do. If I have authority to do something already pursuant to board guidelines, I will do that and I'll let you know. If I don't have authority to do something, I'll come to you to ask. So I just want to encourage and assure you about that. And if any of you at any time have any question about this or any other legal matter, I have encouraged people to contact me personally, and I'm happy to talk with you at any time, any place. I won't say 24 hours a day, but close to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything further, Director Lewis?
I may not be clear on my request because the response that I'm receiving is not it's not necessarily the answer that I don't want to hear. But what and maybe that is the case. I essentially do not like to be caught off guard. And there have been times that I've been caught off guard as a board member, and I haven't had the proper information to respond because I didn't have that information. And I don't know if this is just unique to me as a director in District B, or if my colleagues have experienced this, but I prefer not to be caught off guard, and I like to make informed decisions. And so there are some details and some specificity that we require as a board that we don't have, and sometimes we don't know to ask that exact question, and sometimes we are going to rely on staff or this ad hoc committee to bring that to us timely. I'm done.
Thank you, Director. Anything further? Okay. Treasurer Cook.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. I'm glad we're doing this, and in fact, I see it as a way to help assure that we'll get more information in a timely fashion. These folks are acting, as I see it, on our behalf to more closely engage, to alert the council about issues that we may need to be informed on, and to help assure that kind of periodic or ongoing communication and oversight. So thank you. I'm glad we're doing this.
Thank you very much, Madam Treasurer. Mr. Secretary, Director Walker.
Thanks. And I'll echo Director Cook's sentiment. I think that it provides an opportunity for some board members to have a dialogue outside of a public meeting where attorney-client privilege is in effect. If there were to be more than the 2 board members, then it would be an open meeting that might not even exist because the format and the notice for a what's the word I'm looking for? When we clear the room. Executive session would have to occur, and then that defeats the purpose of having the discussion in the format in which it's envisioned here. So. I'm glad you 2 chose to take that on. I expect that the reports back to us, however frequently or infrequently they come, will be full of information that we need, and any more information could be provided to all of us in an executive session. But this is just an opportunity for us to have through you 2 some eyes and ears and a dialogue that might help refine some questions and discussion. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Well said. Madam First Vice Chair, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I recall, this recommendation stemmed from the concern that many board members had over a additional appropriation for legal services, and it was felt that without definition of what those would be, that there might be some appropriate oversight by board members, both to expenditures and activities. And I just recall in that meeting that that was the concern that was raised. And as I understand it, this ad hoc committee is meant to address that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Director Williams, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Tisdale. That I think pretty much summed up the point that I think that Director Lewis was making, that I'm making also, is that that's great that we're going to have representation who's going to be more aware than necessarily would all be once a month. We just like to, if there is nothing to report, great, but if there's something to report, we'd like to know it ASAP and not 3 weeks later at a monthly report. Did I clarify that a little better? That's exactly what I was saying. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Director Williams. You're not getting off the hook that easy. We have business to do, too. Director Menton, you are recognized.
Yes, I'm not sure I understand the purpose of the committee, actually. So Rolf and 2 committee members meet. They have a discussion which, in all hopes and intent, is not publicized to the public. Board directors, unless they specifically ask, are not noticed on it. Then we'll turn around and meaningful conversation from that will result in an executive committee, executive session here in this room. So it seems to me it is a bunch of steps when what should just occur is that every director should have the opportunity to hear all of the conversation that Rolf feels is relevant. And if that is once a month at certain times, or it goes 3 months with nothing at all, I'm not sure I see the purpose in an ad hoc committee that makes it more difficult for another board director to attend. When then some people are part of that, and why not just have an executive session where we all are on the same page? If anybody wants to respond to me, that's how I'm viewing it. I think we should be on a level playing field. I think the public should know by notice, even if it's an executive session, and our attorney should be able to assist all of us.
And I believe General Counsel has already said that's exactly what he will do, but I'll ask General Counsel to repeat what he said earlier.
Yes, Rolf Ostpaug again, General Counsel. Not quite a repetition, but my understanding of the purpose of the committee was similar to what First Vice Chair Catlin was saying, that to see there was concern about the additional expenditures, to see what those expenditures are being used for, and to see how things are going, essentially. But if there is significant change or significant movement in any of these any litigation that falls within this description, it's not like it has to go to this group first and then go to the board. I would just, and as I have done in the past, suggest that it's an appropriate time to have an executive session with the board as a whole. Keep in mind, though, that executive session is limited to specific things under Colorado law where I am providing advice or being given direction to negotiate, or we're having discussions with regard to advice. It wouldn't be appropriate to have executive session, for example, just to me to say, well, there's been no change. So I think that that's the concern. We have to be careful not to invoke executive session too much where it's not appropriate to do so under Colorado law.
All right. So I think, personally, I'm not in favor of the ad hoc committee where there are some discussions that make it difficult for other board directors to attend. Because I believe that is the purpose by having 2 members here on this committee. we still have concerns, some of us, about the $4 million and some of the other money. So instead of, I'm just going to call, I consider it shenanigans, just have an executive session and tell us the answers to our questions that we really had that night of a public meeting, but we were limited and unable to speak about it. So let's just have an executive session.
The director may forget that we're having an executive session in the month of August to discuss all these things already. It's already been scheduled and announced.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Broom.
Thank you, Chair. I just caution against any memos floating around dealing with ongoing litigation. Sooner or later, those are going to leak out one way or the other, and it'll come back to our detriment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Broom. Any other comments on the chair's report? Seeing none, Mr. General Manager, we're ready for your report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, quite a few activities between the last board meeting that we had in, I guess it was June now. So my report, of course, is in the packet, so I'll just hit some of the highlights, and the chair actually covered a few things as well. So back on June 20th, I had my regular quarterly meeting with Mayor Michael Hancock and his staff, and then also some of our key staff members attended. Both Michael Ford and Heather McKillop were at that meeting. We talked, did some updates on the LIVE program. We talked about regional transportation funding opportunities, 16th Street Mall, and a few other items. The chair mentioned the APTA board meeting. I'll expand on that a little bit. So while I was there, I also attended the APTA board meeting. I'm on the executive committee of the APTA board of directors. I also vice chair two committees, the Rail Transit Committee and the Rail Transit CEO committees. And then also our CFO, Heather McKillop, is a co-chair on innovative financing and P3s or something like that committee. It's a complex but very popular committee. It's always very well attended. But she also served and spoke on several panels, including one that was a general session on financing and funding, and that was an international panel. Heather, participants from Japan, and then also participants from Canada. And so we even had to have some translators at that session. It was very interesting to see how the development and real estate management happens around transit investment in some of the other countries. So it was very, very interesting presentations. Our staff was involved quite heavily in that. We had a pop-up community event, a pop-up pancake breakfast on Saturday, June 29th, along the G line to kind of talk about quiet zones and that. And then we have one scheduled for the University of Colorado A line on Saturday, July 27th at 9 a.m. Last week, we did an update interview and press event regarding the Uber and Mesabi partnership that we have. One of the, I think, most interesting things about that is we were able to report that over 1,200 transit fares have been sold on the Uber app. And that could be 1,200 fares otherwise that we normally would not see if people were getting exposure to transit just from the Uber app. And so that's just within the last, I believe, 2 months since that has gone live, and actually only the last couple weeks where it's been 100% available in the Denver market. So we have an awful lot of interest at the national and international level in this collaboration and how we got there and how it's working. So it's been very interesting. On Wednesday, July 10th, I had a good opportunity to address the Colorado Forum. The Colorado Forum is a group of about 50 CEOs that affect public policy both at the state level and the national level. On that day, they had transportation-related sessions, and so myself and the executive director from CDOT, Shoshana Liu, spoke to the forum. At the end, I was very pleased to get a lot of comments at the end. A lot of people came up to me after the presentation that said, I had no idea all the things that RTD has done, all the things you are doing, and where you were heading. So later on, I got an email from their executive director that said they fully support us and that they were really, really excited about the things that we're doing. Ongoing conversations with RTD and, of course, the Denver Transit Partners Board. We have a monthly call now. That was about every 2 weeks. We're doing that monthly. We had the last call on July 11th. Also on July 11th, met with Diane Barrett, City and County of Denver. We meet every few weeks to work on some high-level issues that we need to keep moving through the city and through RTD. And our main topic this week was the 16th Street Mall IGA, where we're working through the details on that according to the parameters that the board approved in the board action regarding the 16th Street Mall. Last Friday, we had our US 36 commissioners and mayors meeting. We had really good discussion. We had a pretty lengthy agenda. It was a good opportunity for us to talk about the Fast Tracks draft initial report and a variety of other things, and we had a really good exchange. The chair covered the 50th, the bus rodeo. I dropped in on the bus rodeo on Saturday. It was great to see all of the competitors and their families, and it was a great event for our employees and our contract employees that get to participate in that as well. Just yesterday, I had my monthly meeting with Ulyss Cleckley, who heads up Denver Public Works for City and County of Denver, and we meet every month. Ulyss, a couple of his key staff members. This last week, it was myself, Bill Van Meter, and Mike Meter that attended, and just catching up on things pertinent to transportation to both agencies and keeping things moving. This morning at the DRCOG RTC committee, we had a good meeting. I took the opportunity to just remind that committee and then also DRCOG in general that we would be happy to come and give updates either to the RTC or the full DRCOG board. And I mentioned that our LIVE program is going live on the 29th. Mentioned the Fast Tracks resolution report, and then also the transportation transformation work, or the Reimagine RTD work that we're getting ready to embark on. And then just a reminder of those couple sessions that are coming up on July 30 and 31st. July 30 will be a study session. We have Jarrett Walker coming to talk to us, and then we'll have a stakeholder session the next morning where he'll speak again, and then we'll have opportunity for greater stakeholder dialogue on that day. A couple weeks ago, I was approached by the Denver Sports Commission if I would co-chair the Transportation Subcommittee on the World Cup soccer bid for 2026. So I'll be co-chairing that Transportation Subcommittee along with Kim Day from Denver International Airport. I want to really thank our events team. We've been working them very, very hard this year and last year, and it just seems like every week there's something that they are wrangling and presenting, and I think last Friday is just a great example of the work that they do. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge them and appreciate all of them well. US 36 update. The board, I've sent out several updates on that over the weekend, and the latest information to report on that. I will say, let me just start with we've just really had a great collaboration with CDOT and RTD since Friday night. That's when I got the first email on this, was at about 11 o'clock on Friday night from Executive Director Shoshana Liu. And then we had a number of calls starting Saturday morning, and of course, after every call, I sent the board an update. Good news, they've got an interim fix going on where there's 4 lanes open, 2 in each direction, using the westbound lanes. And then this morning, CDOT did report out that they are going to have to remove and rebuild that. It's a MSE wall, that's mechanically stabilized earth. We utilize those quite a bit in our bridge structures as well. But that's probably going to take them some time. They said at least a month today. I think that's probably optimistic, but I don't know. But they're working on getting some contracts in place. It was actually CDOT that asked us, would you consider having free service on the Flatiron Flyer? And we had to think about that a moment, because sometimes there's unintended consequences of actions. We were worried about capacity and getting overwhelmed, but it worked out very well. And while we made the decision to do the Flatiron Flyer, I should say CDOT's going to sponsor that. They're going to reimburse us for revenue loss that service. The free service is just today and yesterday. So starting tomorrow, we'll go back to regular service. But it was a recommendation by our customer care team that we also do the LD routes, because they were impacted as well by US 36, and CDOT agreed to do those as well. So it's going to be an ongoing process. I think overall it went fairly well. CDOT actually added some buses through their Bustang contractor, which kind of helped us a little bit with capacity, 5 or 6 buses, particularly in the morning peak, to help us with some of the delays that we were experiencing. So I think overall, great collaboration. Hats off to our operations team, as always. is responding as they do, Gina Callahan and Fred Worthen in particular, and then also our communications team, which was highly engaged in working press releases and things with CDOT all through the entire weekend. It was a very busy weekend, and Gina and I had to pull away from the bus rodeo to be on the calls with CDOT. So it was a lot of work over the weekend. The board may have seen some rider alerts regarding some overhead wire work that we're going to be doing over a couple of weekends coming up. I want to just let the board know that this is just the first part of a lot of wire work repair that we're going to have to be doing on the light rail system. We have about 18 different locations where we need to do some wire replacements. Some of them are short runs, some of them are kind of long runs. And so in addition to these couple of disruptions that we've announced to do these near-term fixes, we're working on a schedule of what that's going to look like through the rest of the summer and the fall, and then we'll have to pick that work back up again in the spring. But it's very important that we do this work so that our system stays reliable and we're able to maintain it in a state of good repair. But I just wanted to let you know that there's going to be more of that coming, and we'll work very closely with all of our stakeholders, of course, as we schedule that so everybody knows about it, and we will run bus bridging, of course, for all of that, which is another challenge for us given where we are on staffing. Good news out of the Federal Transit Administration today, our full funding grant agreement on the Eagle project. The last two payments were made it through the congressional release today, so we will be able to draw down those funds of about $213 million, and that's the remaining funds left on the Eagle full funding grant agreement. So we've been waiting on that, and of course, since we've opened the G line, now we're able to do that. Henry and I are going to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. We have our next monthly Federal Railroad Administration meeting in headquarters on Thursday morning, and of course, next probably on Friday in the weekly briefing, I will let the board know how we did and report the progress on that. And then I will just let you know that Michael Ford and Zami Silva are at the Compto National Conference this week in Tampa, Florida, representing RTD, and I know that Michael's doing some presentations on some of the innovative mobility things that we're doing here. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. You had already mentioned the rail rodeo and the employee event, and just encourage participation in those. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I know there are some interesting questions to pose to you based upon the tremendous work that you have been doing, and thank you so much for that report. Director Folska, you are the first to be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Geneva, I was real curious to see or hear what you and Heather learned from the Japanese group at the International Rodeo on your creative financing. I mean, they have really a tremendous offering of transportation.
Well, the very interesting thing is that, it's interesting about transportation, but it really is more fascinating about what they're allowed to do and able to do as far as real estate management. I want to say close to half of their business, really, and half of their revenue comes from real estate management. Other cities are similar to that, like Hong Kong. Now, the Canadian cities aren't quite near that, but they're able to do that because there's no restrictions for them. We have restrictions in that we can only acquire property that we use for transportation and others. So there's both federal and kind of state restrictions that prohibit us from doing that kind of development and that kind of management. But the great thing about it was the acting FTA administrator was in the room during that session, and we are sure she was listening well, and certainly the FTA talks a lot about value capture, so hopefully they got some ideas on where they could maybe relax some restrictions, and we might be able to benefit a little bit more from value capture like some of our other colleagues.
That's really fascinating. With regard to the problem we're seeing on US 36, what do you see the impact to our BRT infrastructure that we partnered with CDOT in the plenary? What's possibly going to happen there? I mean,
well, right now what we know is that the eastbound lanes are the impacted lanes, and that's probably all, whatever was sitting up on top of that area, the affected area, is all going to have to be rebuilt. Probably all three of those lanes and the shoulder. We are seeing, in addition to the detour that we're having to run, that everyone's having to run, We're seeing a little bit of a degeneration in our communications capability because we have fiber optics that run along that corridor, and some of that is being impacted because that cable's getting damaged and pulled by the earth shifting there. So,
Do you foresee a cost to RTD?
I don't see any cost to RTD.
Because our BRT infrastructure is 4 years old, so it's got nothing to do with us. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it was a CDOT project, and so I think it's really, I don't foresee us having any impact in terms of cost.
Well, we did put $150 million into it, right?
We did about $186 million into the project total.
Okay.
But it might be a little too soon to have that conversation, but right now I'm not anticipating anything. And then I think it's going to take CDOT some time to really determine exactly the root cause and whether it's project related or whether it's just an act of Mother Nature that they're going to have to absorb.
Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you very much, Director Folska. Mr. Secretary, Director Walker, you are recognized.
Thanks. I'm wondering if you have any preliminary or observations on ridership of the FF. I know it's only been 2 days, but if the operators have said it's packed or the same as usual.
The reports that I received yesterday is that we thought we were going to be having standing room only and maybe some pass-ups, but my understanding is that didn't happen, and that the ridership was maybe a little bit higher than a typical seasonal summertime. But we don't have actual counts in yet, but those are kind of the anecdotal observations.
Okay, thanks. And then I'd heard the same thing that you did about the way that real estate is treated in other countries. They're free to do what they want. And then the last thing is in your discussions with the city, did Pena Boulevard come up at all? And if so, what kind of context and if there's anything you can share about what impact that might have? I know it's long term, but what impact that might have on operations or ridership on the University of Colorado 8 line?
We really haven't had a discussion on Pena Boulevard yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Walker. Director Menton, you are recognized.
Thank you. I wanted to ask a little more about the incident, this, robbery and sexual assault that occurred at the Sheridan station. With the term sexual assault, I'm not sure the best way to phrase this, but would it be considered somewhat of again, I'm not sure how to phrase this, so forget the PC thing, but with inappropriate touching, let's say being on a scale down at 1, and outright violent rape being towards a 10, what level was this?
So this incident occurred over the weekend. A woman on the W line, right as the train was stopping in the station, two men came up and took her backpack right off of her while she was on the train. They exited the train. She followed them, and then followed them off property. So, and that's where the assault occurred. And I don't have the details, and I don't know. We probably don't have that level of detail that you're asking in terms of, because this is a case that is being handled and investigated by Lakewood Police Department.
Okay, so with a split there, Lakewood is the one taking the charge, not Denver?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And were we able to capture video? I know at one incident in the past, we had a little glitch where the cameras were not functioning.
We had good video come off of the platform, and we did make that available to the police department.
Okay, that's the only questions I had about. I've got some people contacting me on this one, and
yeah, at least of the kind of the initial incident, not the incident, not the rest of it that occurred off platform, but the act on the train, and then the people leaving the train and leaving the platform. We had some coverage of that.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Minton. Director Geisinger, you are recognized.
I took the FF1 in today. It was in the middle of the day, but it was absolutely on time, which was nice. May not be the case in the rush hours, but do you expect any changes in the schedule for the Flatiron Flyer?
You know, I don't think so at this point in time. I think we're just going to have to monitor and see how it goes. CDOT did ask if we were interested in them running the additional buses, and we said we don't think we need the additional buses at this point in time. But it's just something we're going to have to monitor. Typically, our riderships may be a little bit lighter in the summer. You know, we have some seasonal ridership trends that we see, so hopefully we can get through it pretty well.
Great. If there are schedule changes, I assume they'll all be public and everything, but I'm getting a lot of questions up there, so if there's anything that would be helpful for me to know to answer those, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Well, we don't anticipate any at this point in time, but, you know, as always, we'll try to do a good job with getting information out to patrons. One of the concerns I have is that on the fiber optics in the communications, so that means our digital display boards at the stations, our emergency telephones, our video surveillance. So, you know, that could be challenging for us to communicate specifics and things like that, at least at the stations, but we'll do it through all of our other channels, including, you know, we were very active all over social media and all over rider alerts and things like that.
With the fiber optics problems, would you expect that to cause problems at Church Ranch and Broomfield, or all the way up the corridor? Hard to say.
It could be the entire corridor, depending on how extensive the damage might be to the fiber.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Geisinger. Any other questions for General Manager regarding his report? Seeing none, then we'll turn to agenda item number 11. This is the public hearing for the 2019 amended budget. Now, please note that this agenda item is one that's actually expressly constrained by statutory and agency procedures. So our process actually is broken up into two parts. First, we have a public hearing, and then second, we'll have a motion and consideration of said motion. So to turn to the first part, the public hearing. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair hereby calls to order the public hearing on the Regional Transportation District's amendment to the adopted budget for the year 2019 at 6:54 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, in accordance with both RTD's requirements and local government statutes. Notice of the public hearing was duly posted in the office of the Executive Manager to the Board of Directors. Persons who have not already indicated a desire to speak at this hearing should register at the desk outside this room. This public hearing will be conducted under the rules and regulations for public hearings that are adopted by the Board of Directors of the Regional Transportation District, and a copy of those rules will be a part of the record of this public hearing. The chair would like to point out that the testimony will be limited to the subject of the public hearing, and presentations of testimony should be no longer than 3 minutes. Written testimony should be submitted to Barbara McManus, the Executive Manager to the Board of Directors, for distribution to the board. Now, there is a copy of the amendment to the 2019 approved budget before each board member here tonight. They have been included in your packets, and copies are available for the public at the sign-in table that is outside this room. And so now I will ask if there is anyone who has signed up for the public hearing on the budget. No one has previously signed up for the public hearing on the budget. If anyone should like to speak and you have not signed up, this is your opportunity. Please come forward to the podium and you will be recognized for up to 3 minutes. There is no one who has accepted the invitation to come to the podium. And so, therefore, as of 6:57 p.m., I will now close the public hearing, and we will proceed with a motion and discussion. Specifically, the motion requested is that it is recommended by the Finance Administration and Audit Committee that the Board of Directors adopt resolution number blank series of 2019 to amend and appropriate funds for the PROS 2019 amended budget to decrease the appropriation by $49.1 million to $1.267 billion, and to decrease the appropriation of capital carry forward previously approved capital funds by $140 million to $579.5 million, as detailed in the discussion section of the board report submitted. May I have a motion? I have a motion from Director Williams. Is there a second to the motion? I have a second from Director Whitmore. Is there discussion on the motion to amend the budget? I don't see that anyone has indicated a desire to speak, so therefore, we will close the discussion on the motion to approve the amended budget. We will proceed to a vote. Director Williams is the movant. Director Whitmore is the second. If you would please vote. By a vote of 14 in favor and none opposed, and one no vote, Director Broom having stepped away for a moment on a point of personal privilege, the motion passes unanimously. And then we turn to agenda item number 11, and this is our unanimous consent agenda. We have one item on the unanimous consent agenda. It is noted as agenda item number 12, action B. It's labeled in your board packet as the award of Group 29 contracted fixed route services. If anyone has a change to or questions on this item, please feel free to advise the chair at this time, and we will, of course, be happy to pull the item from the unanimous consent agenda for consideration under recommended action. But seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the single item on the consent agenda? I have a motion from the second vice chair, and I have a second from the first vice chair. I'm going to get that confused before this is over. All right. Is there any discussion on the single item on the consent agenda, which is the award of Group 29 fixed route services? Seeing none, we can proceed to a vote. The movant is the second vice chair, Rivera Malpiedi. The second is the first vice chair, Catlin. If you would proceed to vote, please. The record will reflect that we have 14 affirmative votes, no negative votes, and one non-vote from Director Broom, who is temporarily away. That concludes the discussion of the consent agenda, which is the item B, award of Group 29 contracted fixed route services. We turn then to our final action item on the agenda this evening. This is listed in the agenda as agenda item number 13, action C. It's the approval of the First Amendment to the salaried defined contribution plan. And specifically, it is recommended by the Finance Administration Audit Committee that the Board of Directors adopt the First Amendment to the RTD Salaried Employees Defined Contribution Plan effective January 1, 2014. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion from Director Busick. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Director Lewis. Thank you. Bear with the hearing impaired chair. Is there any discussion on the motion, which is the approval of the First Amendment to the Salary Defined Contribution Plan? Please feel free to indicate your desire to speak if you have such. We see none in the queue. We may then proceed to a vote. Let the record reflect the movement is Director Busick, and the second is Director Lewis, and we may now proceed to a vote. By a vote of 15 in favor and none opposed, agenda item number 13C, the recommended action, the approval of the First Amendment to the Salary Defined Contribution Plan, is approved unanimously. For the sake of the record, agenda item number 14 is listed as executive session. Again, that is held, as we have previously stated, as a placeholder in the event there should be an executive session. This is the point in the agenda where it would be conducted. No executive session has been scheduled for this evening, and no notice has been given of same. Agenda item number 15 is old business. May I ask of the directors, is there any old business that any director has to bring forward at this time? Director Catlin, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Susan Woods from the planning group. She helped me put together a presentation for the Jeff Tag meeting this past week. And what we talked about was the combination of managed lanes and bus transit. And there was quite a bit of interest at the Jeff Tag meeting among its participants, and we had a good discussion about it. Director Cook was there as well. But this was completely outside of her wheel well, and she very much appreciated the opportunity to learn about it and to help me on that presentation. So I wanted to thank her, but also applaud her willingness to venture into something new. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Any other old business any director would like to bring forward? Madam Second Vice Chair, Rivera Malpiedi, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair Tisdale. I want to thank Pauletta Tanilis and her team for assisting in a kind of an exciting venture that I participated in, and it was the idea of getting information out to the community on how to access our outdoor amenities through transit. And in fact, it turned out that the Denver Post was looking at doing a story, and so we were able to partner with the Sand Creek Regional Greenway and Northeast Transportation Connections to do that, and they did a lovely story, and we're hoping to build on that. I think it really promotes collaboration and gives the service to our community who are sitting in buses to find out that they can in fact go to some of the most amazing outdoor venues that our community has to offer. And I just want to thank Pauletta for her support in that. The second thing is, while I was at the APTA conference, I have been participating in a cybersecurity committee, and thanks to Heather, was able to fill out a survey on behalf of RTD. This morning they said ours was the most succinct survey that came through, and they're finding it to be extraordinarily helpful. But I also attended a human trafficking workshop while I was at APTA. And I can tell you that we have a problem with that in Denver. And so it's something that I'm very interested in working with Chief Pazin on. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Second Vice Chair, and thank you especially for pointing out an important issue relative to the human trafficking and our need to be aware of that. Madam Treasurer, Director Cook, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to acknowledge you graciously gave us credit for hosting the Colorado Science and Engineering Fellowship Program, but in fact it was Barbara McManus and the staff who, in a very short time period, pulled a pretty impressive visit together, and I just wanted to acknowledge her and say thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Madam Treasurer. Appreciate that. Director Williams, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. While we're thanking people, I would like to thank the RTD staff who run the Access-A-Ride program, because I had some surgery on my right foot and was unable to drive a car. And matter of fact, was unable to do a whole lot of things. But I did have occasion to use Access-A-Ride, And it was great service, and I wrote anonymously. I made sure that they did not, stamp board of directors all over the ride every time I called in for a ride. And I had some very interesting experiences, and now I know all about why the number is on the letters on in front of the number, because it tells you who's running that service. And I talked to drivers. And the really most fun one of all is that there's no designated pickup spot for Access-a-Ride at CDOT. And so I was at a CDOT meeting, and Access-a-Ride came to pick me up. They couldn't find me, and so they drove by, and the head of CASTA was with me, and so she ran after the Access-a-Ride bus, and then the director of innovation at CDOT ran after her, and so we had quite a big fun of getting Director Williams on the Access-a-Ride bus over at CDOT. But it is a marvelous service. We do a great job with it, and I would like to thank all of those people that are involved.
Thank you very much, Director. And as you may have heard thematically, be aware that this is the opportunity to mention any events that I neglected to report, that says the things that have happened already, or to promote, that says the things that will happen in the future during the chair's report. So if there's any other event that you would wish to report or promote, please indicate and we'll recognize you. Otherwise, that concludes the old business. Is there any new business from any director to bring forward? Director Walker, Mr. Secretary, you are recognized.
Thanks. So I want to thank the security team for being there for me and helping me through a very confusing event in my life. And I can't thank you all enough for listening. That's it. And two other things. One is I will be going to the Transit Board member and Board Administration Seminar in Jacksonville. I will be moderating a panel on ridership decline, so if any of you have any questions that you want me to ask during that panel or with any of the panelists or anybody else from around the country, let me know and I'll make sure that those questions get forwarded if not answered. Okay, I'll do my best to get an answer for you. And then right after that, I am heading to Minneapolis for Leadership APTA, and I will be moderating a panel on ethics. So if anybody has any questions about ethics from the list of board members that I have or folks that will be on that panel, I'll be happy to ask those questions or make sure that those questions, I'll try to get those questions addressed if you're curious about anybody, what other entities are doing. And that is it. Thanks. So I'm leaving Thursday. Get them to me before. I'm leaving Friday, so get them to me before Friday. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. We appreciate that. Any other director with any old business or new business? We've moved to new business. Any other director with any new business to bring forward? Then, seeing no other business to come before the board at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the RTD board meeting of July 16, 2019 as of 7:10 p.m. I have a motion. I have a second. Is there discussion? No discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? There are none. That passes unanimously. We stand adjourned. Thank you all and good night.